Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Dunn. I'm the executive director here at the New Haven Pride Center, and I use he, him pronouns predominantly. And I'm super excited to welcome you to yet another panel of our Pride New Haven panel series. Today we're going to be, our second panel today is Queer Elders, where we are going to be sitting down with two of our fabulous queer elders and having a conversation about what has been and where we are going. But before we begin, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we're hosting this event. While this event is virtual, the New Haven Pride Center was founded and operates on the traditional lands of the Mohican, the Manchetucket Pequot, the Eastern Pequot, the Shattucoat, the Golden Hill Pawcatuck, the Niantic, and the Quinnipiac people. Please take a moment and acknowledge and honor the Native people whose lands that you occupy and the history of the place that you're in. To learn more about native lands, you can visit native-land.ca. Today's event, as I already said, is part of Pride New Haven, which runs through Sunday. So check out, we got over 25 events, which means there is literally something for everyone. You can see all that full schedule and read more about the events at newhavenpridecenter.org right there on your screen. And we did want to take a moment to thank our sponsors of Pride New Haven, our presenting sponsors who make Pride New Haven possible, which include Gotham City Cafe, Healthcare Advocates International, Black Rock Social House, Partners Cafe, Circle Care Center, the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, the City of New Haven, and the State of Connecticut. Today's program, which, as I mentioned, is Queer Elders, is also sponsored by CT Humanities, which helps underwrite all of our panels and conversation series here at the center. And with that, nobody came here to listen to me talk. I'm going to pass it over to our fabulous moderator, who is our deputy director here at the New Haven Pride Center, the one and only Juan Carlos Soto. You are muted, Juan Carlos Soto.
Hi, sorry. I guess I was muted. It's not like I did a panel earlier this morning, so I know exactly how this works. Thank you for joining us for today's panel. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to two amazing people who happen to be some of our elders, and I'm excited to have this conversation and chat with them about, like Patrick said, of where we have been, where we're going, and what are their thoughts about it, and what wisdom they can share with us as well. So I want to introduce both of our speakers. I'll bring them on, Ocean and Tia Lynn Waters, also lovingly known as Bubbles.
Good afternoon.
Hi, so I'm going to have you both introduce yourselves. We'll start with Ocean and then Bubbles, if you want to introduce yourself. Ocean, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks to Patrick Dunn and the Pride New Haven Center for including this section on elders that are as many elders in society in general are marginalized, and for the LGBTQ elders, they tend to be furthermore isolated and marginalized. I really appreciate that. And I'm here appearing in my roles as a co-host of the Rainbow Elders and Friends Affinity Group that is held in partnership with the New Haven Pride Center and Unitarian Universalist Society of New Haven. And we've just had our fourth meeting, and we're going to have our next meeting on the last Monday of this month, and thereafter it's every Monday, the last Monday from 6 to 7 o'clock in the evening, and we also have a Zoom portion. But it's held under this brand name of Rainbow Generations, because we view that we really need intergenerational effort. That we brought this together as part of the result of having a survey that went out from the Connecticut LGBTQ and social services that did a survey on the needs of elders, LGBTQ elders, and not surprisingly, they came out with the needs and so forth. And so the purpose of this affinity group is to provide a place of meeting, first of all, to come together, and then also advocacy for issues related to LGBTQ elders, and also hopefully services. And we will be appearing on the green on Saturday to promote and to sort of expand this idea to others.
Thank you for sharing that. Bubbles, I'm gonna call you by TLN Waters from now on. So everybody knows who I'm talking about. So I know Bubbles as Bubbles, and I love her, and we have like this amazing friendship. But I use your famous name, the name that you have on your IMDb page, TLN Waters. Can you introduce yourselves and tell us about the incredible human being that you are?
I'm a proud board member of the New Haven Pride Center. I'm a woman of color here in New Haven for many of years. I'm a designer and I am an artist. And as of in New Haven, many years as a performer, as you said, I've been a performer for over like 30 years here and overseas. So now I'm here, based in New Haven again, and I am doing work with the New Haven Pride Center and some other facilities and trying to get, as you said, interactional things with the generational LGBT community.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're not just a performer, you're an incredible performer. Thank you very much. Who every time you perform, we get our best life.
If I said that, it would have made myself look silly, so I'll let you say it.
Yeah, like last year not last year, but this past summer, when Arts and Ideas closed, you performed, and like it was so interesting because the entire day, like folks were kind of sitting and cheering and kind of thing, and then you got on that stage and just everybody flocked to the front of the stage and then turned into a real party. So yeah, don't sell yourself short because you're absolutely
incredible. That, baby. I really do.
So I want to start a little bit about, I think like whenever we have this conversation and we have this information sharing between generations, I think it's really important for us to take inventory of where the queer liberation movement is now, right, compared to where it was. So I want to talk to you about, like, as folks who have been in this movement for a long time, where have you seen this movement move? Like, and it has that movement been encouraging? Like, do you feel good about it, or do you feel like we're still missing some things? So if we can reflect on that a little bit. And I'll start with Ocean.
Okay, thanks for the question. That's an important question, I think. Well, I think first of all, it's important to recognize that all of the problem that faces society in general, racism, colonialism, gender phobia, that those were present in the LGBTQ community to a large degree. There's a hierarchy in the LGBTQ community that generally went from white men, white lesbians, and then the transgender and the bisexuals and people of color were sort of just left they were left falling. And I think just as society in general has been awakened to that, there is that kind of awakening and recognition, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And we can't assume that people in queer spaces are generally consciously open. And I can see progress on a number of levels. And so certainly, like some wisdom can come from elders, but I think there's a wisdom that's coming from the youth also. Just in the breaking down of the obvious bifurcation of gender, that we always taught that sex and gender are different, but in practice, we just followed as though it was only sex characteristics. And so I think that's a really valuable contribution that has really come from the younger generation. And I think that there's still more work to be done. There's work to be done in the area of ageism. There's work to be done in the area of ableism. And again, I congratulate New Haven Pride Center for some of the work that's been done in those areas. Recently there was the Queer Disabled conference, and in the words of one of the panelists, Elaine Pogue, that she said that there are two categories that she said. They're the disabled and there's the not yet disabled.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we become older, and I'm carrying invisible disabilities, but those disabilities become more and more visible as we go down this path.
Right.
Well, I have visible disabilities, and I totally understand that comment. And I think one of the biggest things I see has changed is how fast news and information has gotten into our community.
Yeah.
We are more visible now than ever.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, but it's also for the younger crowd, it's made them targets, and for the older crowd, it's kind of pushed them to the side because we never use any elder or older images of people in any advertisement and in any kind of like publicity at all. I mean, when you think of gay, you think of young, middle-aged, predominantly up until like maybe 20 years ago, white men, and maybe a different person slapped in there, Asian or Black person, just to offset the color.
Yeah.
We need to really think about everyone's going to be this age at some point.
Right.
I mean, we all did not start at this age. I remember when I was younger and I would see an older person in the club and I'm like, oh, he better work or she better work, he's still coming out. I've always thought that there's no reason that no matter what age you are, you should still be visible and still come out and show yourself. Yeah. But I know a lot of times as you get older, you don't feel as attractive. You don't feel that you fit in anymore. And that's something that we need to change.
Yeah. I think there's I think this is like a society at large, but I feel like within the queer community, there's almost a hyper focus on youth and like wanting to stay young. And
that's the societal thing. It's not just in gay. It's
right.
Everywhere.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So we have a great question here that I kind of want to bring up from Paige, who says, "Great panel. My question: some of us who are older only came out recently by age. We're elders, but in terms of the community, we're newbies. So any advice for folks who come out like in their later years? Do you have any advice for those folks?" And thank you, Paige, for your question. And we'll start with Bubbles. Yeah.
Okay. My biggest suggestion to that is find your local center, or is there a gay line church or something like that, and then see if they have any spaces where you can go and actually just meet people of a certain age, or just something that you can affiliate yourself with and feel comfortable, a nice safe space. And then once you meet a couple of people, then you can go out and be social. And it's not like, okay, you just run to a club and you think of, okay, I gotta talk to somebody. No, try and meet people on a safe space, on a very common ground space where there's no pretense to anything besides just meeting and making new fellowship.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's something I would say to do, instead of, as we were younger, just jump into a club and that'll happen. But if you're looking to come out and meet people and get a social system of like people that can actually, know what you're going through and be able to talk to you on the same level as you. I mean, those are the suggestions I have. So
Yeah. No, thank you. Those are amazing. Yeah, I think fellowship is really important. Ocean, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And also, I want to say congratulations to you for recognizing your whole self and wanting to come out at any point in your life. And I think we all have different stories about that, especially Rainbow Elders. For myself, I came out as a young teenager, but in my career, I had to quiet it down, or I would have lost employment, definitely.
Yeah.
And so I tended to I was kind of like a layered onion. So with my friends and socially, I was one way, and then I was just quiet, you know, didn't say and wasn't asked intentionally, and had to be very careful in a sense. So it's very understandable why there's so many different layers that people have in coming out. And those are great suggestions that Bubbles gave. And I would just add into that also to just allow yourself time and finding, and the thing is, you don't come out once.
Right.
It's kind of a lifelong process, and that also becomes kind of an issue for elders too, because okay, you're going into a home for the aged, or you're going into assisted living and so forth, and so many times Rainbow Elders feel like they have to go back into the closet because how is this going to impact the care that I'm giving? How are people going to relate with me? And even though legally it's required that people are given there's anti-discrimination laws, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that you're going to be welcome with the whole person, and that people have the multicultural competencies.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a continual process. But I think also it's just allow the brave spirit within you to come to test those waters, and that you'll find that you'll get support in strange areas that you didn't expect. And of course, you may get doors shut in other areas, but still it's all good because it's a part of your becoming. And I think that even for us as elders, it's a lifelong journey that you have to decide at certain points to what point am I going to rein it in or just sit quietly, and to what point am I going to openly appear? And certainly there's a lot to be said for presenting ourselves as who we are genuinely, family, friends, and so forth. But you have to measure that yourself and measure that what is the timing of those things.
Yeah.
But I figure if they are ready and making that decision to come out, they've dealt with thinking about it for a good while, because it's not something that you do overnight. I mean, there's a lot of anguish and time spent thinking about what's my next step. And at this point, I mean, there's at one point in time, we didn't have all the avenues. I mean, basically you went out and you came out and it was a club. Now we have churches, we have groups online, you have groups in different facets that you don't have to feel alone. And that's one of the worst things to do in coming out, because they feel that this is only happening to them. And I find that young people and old people coming out is the same thing. The only difference is that as an older person, you're more stable in life, but you're still afraid of losing what you have. And as a young person coming out, you're afraid that you're ostracized and will lose everything you have. So once you get past that fear, it's basically trying to get a community that will help lift you up, and you won't feel so alone. And the thing is, there's too many people out here. There's too many support systems, and I hope that you find some place to feel comfortable and feel your full self. And you can always call a Pride Center.
That's right.
If
Uh,
you're in the New Haven area, that we have the affinity group, Rainbow Elders and Friends, on the last Monday of each month.
yeah.
And if you can't come to the Pride Center, then we also have the Zoom link, and you can get to know other people, and you'll find that there are other elders in that same situation that have come out later.
Exactly.
Right.
You're not alone.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I like really like appreciate about this group, like the Rainbow Elders, is that like it is cross generational, and I think that's so important, right? And that everything that we do within our community is cross generational, because like we as younger folks have to acknowledge the gifts that people like you and Bubbles gave us, right? Like like when I read our history, our queer history, like I'm so grateful for the fights that were put into place that allow me to, like, as we say in the center, like I get paid to be gay. Like I'm a professional gay, you know what I mean? And it's like it's because of people, like you both, right? And it is my honor and it is my duty and honor to have to carry your torch. But I can't expect to do it alone. Like I have to work with
others,
with you, right? Like and younger, either I'm sort of in the middle, right? Like so I have to work with the younger generations and I have to work with the old generations, and like that back and forth of knowledge and wisdom, like you were saying, sometimes like sometimes like I'm in my late 30s, so sometimes like there's this little voice that sneaks in when a young person tells me something like, you're older, you would know better, right? But no, like the wisdom sharing goes both ways. So I'm really happy that you said that. So and that sort of like also like train of thought, I'm thinking, is there anything that like has surprised you of where queer liberation has moved into? Like, is there things that you like thought were impossible that we're doing now that you're like, this is so cool that we are able to do this?
That's the one thing that I'm really grateful is that as queer people, we've gotten into situations where we're making or we're in the process of being able to help with making laws that will help benefit us. That's something just like at a certain point in my life, I didn't never think there would be a Black president. And now I see not only, that's happened, and I see gay and lesbian congressmen now, and gay and lesbian mayors now. And as a child, I never thought I would see that. And those are beautiful things because not only are we being seen, we're also in the room where they are putting laws and trying to govern and making bills about our lives. And I think that's something that we really need to think about. And as young people, we need to see that that's accessible to us.
Yeah.
Being gay or lesbian does not mean, even trans, does not mean that you cannot get into those rooms and make laws and better the situation.
Yeah.
As far as social things, I'm kind of like, I miss our clubs. I miss our gathering holes. We don't have those as much anymore because of social media and those kind of things. Because once the internet came about, our club scene kind of just fizzled. People didn't feel the need to come out anymore because it's like you can go on Grindr, or you can go on this, or you can go on this, plenty of this or whatever, and meet up, and there's no watering hole where I came out where you went to a club and it was everybody, young, gay, Black, white, Asian, lesbian. Now if I see anything, the lesbians have their party over here, the gays have their party over here, and it's like, okay, then there's gay and this affirmation and the gay and this affirmation, and it's like we've come a long way, but it seems like we're going in different directions. And that's one thing I don't like about what's going on right now. But we'll see what happens in due time.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like traveling forward but separate, like not traveling forward together.
Yeah, and then the thing is, I think the more we get separated, the less. Sometimes, it's the less power you have as a community,
Yeah.
because it's not like, find a common ground to things. That way, when we have to battle something that is coming for our community as a whole, we have a firm footing, and we can actually defend our community. But if everyone is so like scattered, it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
And we do have a lot of laws right now in the books that are coming for us, and we really need to think about that.
Yeah.
And I hope that, young or old people out there, remember, November is right around the corner.
Right. Absolutely. Ocean, like, do you want to reflect on this question as well?
Yeah, I hear what Bubbles was saying about like the loss of community place and connection in that way. But from another side, I sort of feel like in the very early days we were more of a political coalition.
Mm.
We didn't like each other very much. There was a lot of gay bashing of trans and gay men against lesbians, and there were all these kind of dynamics because we were suddenly sort of put together in order to galvanize our efforts, and we never really had a time to come together and have these kind of like a real genuine building of community. Maybe it happened in certain local areas in a way, but I'm inspired by the awareness of intersectionality that has come about.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that, we don't only just have LGBTQ, we recognize two-spirited people. And my mother was Cherokee, and she recognized that I was a two-spirited person. And made dresses for me as a young child. That sort of ended from my father's family. But, you have those kind of tendencies and recognition of the different ways, and you have now like Black pride,
Mm-hmm.
and same-sex love versus gay. The terminology that others have given. People are finding their own kind of terminology, and yes, it becomes a long list.
I have a question. What's the difference between same-sex as saying gay?
Well, this is what African American, as far as I know, it was also men decided, because I think their image of gay was white,
Mm-hmm.
which is said, and I'm guessing, but I don't know exactly, but it's one thing that I've lived in about 45 countries around the world, and I found almost nowhere that same-sex love does not exist, but in different ways. In fact, like you go to Muslim countries, you can find men-to-men love. They can say you can have men-to-men sex, but you need to be married, to the opposite sex, and then I can have sex with you. And so
that's more of an open thing. But the thing is, there are many clubs in that society that they're men only clubs.
Mm-hmm.
So in bathhouses and things like that.
I know about.
Yeah, I've been, I've done those in my day too.
And then you have the male zine dancers, male belly dancers.
Oh yeah.
Every culture has their own version of the society, and the thing is, what you were talking about as for a second about the difference of when we're coming up and how we have the trans bashing and dealing with like racial issues. Those will never go away,
right?
Because it's in our society. It's systemic, and you're not gonna. Just because we're gay does not mean we don't have those same issues. Until those issues are gone away in the full society, they're always going to be in our society, no matter what we do. And the thing is, we need to. Until I can only think about this country right now, because every country has their own issues of colorism dealing with like, a person of color, any colonial-based country, again, has the same issues. But I feel I I I know I'm not going to see it in my lifetime, but I would love to get to a point where we are judged on, our actions and not our colors. And that's a great thought, but it's never going to happen in my lifetime. And I have to deal with that, and I have to, wake up in the morning and as a person of color, and as a person living as a trans woman in a LGBT society, and I have to make myself aware of, I don't have limitations, but I have to know what I'm dealing with when I go out into the streets. And as an elder, it's like, okay, is somebody gonna, are they gonna attack me because I'm trans, or are they gonna attack me because I'm an elder person and they think I'm an easy mark? Or it's like these thoughts get in my head. But I mean, we have to. I mean, you have to live your life the best way you can, and that's something that I have to. I try and deal with every day. And sometimes there's good days and sometimes there's bad days. I'm rambling, so I'm gonna shut up. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Ocean, do you have anything else to add to the previous question?
Well, I just want to, I really hear what Bubbles is saying, and certainly the more that intersectionality is impounded on people, the more marginalized and isolated they can become. But one hopeful thing is, and I think it's healthy to recognize that we have those elements. They're here, they're systemic. But one inspiring thing is that I'm part of an international end-of-life doula association. And 2 years ago, they made a declaration to be an anti-racist, consciously inclusive organization. End-of-life doulas are one of those kind of phenomena where, until recently, it was pretty much white female-led. And so they totally changed, they gave kind of like a whole multicultural education extensively, partially from SAGE, LGBTQ advocacy and services, to get a rating from on SAGE Care, and then also for multicultural competencies to work together. And so we work together creating something called racial affinity groups.
Yeah.
Where whites came together and talked about whiteness. Because that's part of the problem, is that we don't talk about race, we don't invest in that. And so I think is racism and sexism removed? No, but there's more consciousness and people have skills that they can now look to.
Right.
We're more apt to talk about things that we never would 20 and 30, 40, 50 years ago. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a time where we knew about gay and lesbian people, but it was an uncle or it was somebody that family member that we knew they would come around on holidays and you would see them and they're gone. And it's like, or it was something that you just keep in your household. Now we actually can have discussions, and families are actually having, because of the visibility in TV shows and movies and plays, like there are basically plays where you go and you see gay and lesbian and LGBT community love affairs and relationships. And I think those are amazing because they build discussions that we would never have seen 20 years ago or 50 years ago. Yeah. And I think those are one of the most positive things that have come up in many years.
Yeah. And I think to that point, like we are having conversations what we didn't have like 20, 30 years ago, right? Like we are talking like about queerness and that uncle that like everybody knew was gay, but no one talks about it. Like now we're talking about it. It's the same way that I think in spaces like where we knew that white supremacy existed and how it impacted us, but we didn't really talk about it or address it or confronted it in the way that we are, which is like, to your point, with doula, like now people are talking about it. And also I just kind of want to make sure that so just in case anybody listening doesn't know what a doula is, can you talk about what a doula is, Ocean? Just in the off chance that somebody doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, it's sometimes referred to as a midwife and death, just the same as you have midwives and birth, that you can be midwifed in your death, to be supported and held during that period.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that just in case, because I'm really familiar with term, but I was like, oh, let's just like make sure that folks. Yeah, I think my next question, I want to change speeds a little bit and like think about like, we've talked a lot about this cross-generational sort of like sharing of ideas and sharing of wisdom. Is there anything that if you had like all of the young people in the world in front of you at once, like, is there anything that you would like them to like know? And I know that's a big question, but like, if you could get us to understand something or think about something, what would you want that thing be, that you would want to like get us to like snap out of it, for lack of a better way of phrasing it? And maybe we can start with you, Ocean.
Well, my first response is just sort of a more spiritual view, to just recognize that we're all one.
Mm-hmm.
We're all interconnected, and I don't really see that. It's like from an elder position. There's a certain kind of role that comes kind of as an elder, and there's a certain kind of wisdom that's expected to come from that.
Right.
As I said, that I think wisdom is in the interchange.
Right.
It's not doesn't have a source, but and that's why it's so important that we come together. And Bubble said in the beginning also that, look, you're all going to become older, so you might as well learn what it's about. And it's like, one of the things that I would have done differently is had more relationship with LGBTQ elders. I had some, like some of my partners were elder, but not really walking the walk with them.
Right.
Because one of the things you begin to realize is that, well, I could have done this a little differently earlier. If I had realized some things. And if you sit and walk with someone, then you're gonna see some things that, oh yeah, that was a good thing, or you're gonna see some things that are like, well, why did they do that? I would do this differently, in preparing for becoming an elder. But of course, in my generation, I thought if I lived to 40, that would be like fabulous, And I was just sort of dumbfounded, and I never thought that I would be here in my 70s. It's like, I feel like I'm ancient. 8 years for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Bubbles?
If I were talking to anyone young, I would just keep it to one simple thing. And you have to get to a place where you love yourself. And once you do that, everything else will seem less as a burden or whatever. You'll have that once you feel comfortable in your own skin, or you feel that, try and find what makes you the most happiest. Everything else around you is going to just fall into place. Because once you find that center, you can then make moves to like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to educate myself. I want to do this, or I want to do that. And people are going to say things and people are going to do things. But as long as you have that sense of who you are, and it's hard and it's not going to come overnight. But once you have that in your life, it just makes things seem so much more simpler. Because you can like, okay, I don't have to be this way for this person to like me, or I don't have to be this way to get this job. You can say I'm affirmated in myself enough to say, you know what, forget this job. I'm going to get this job because I'm going to be able to live my true self.
Yeah.
At a certain time in the past, we didn't have that. You had to hide yourself to be this way, to get that job, or to be in a relationship, or to do that. Now you have so many avenues, so many different variables to work with, and learn, go online, read, meet friends, and get as much information as you can to make it seem less, oppressed. And I think that's a big thing for young people to find out. I think that being an elder, you know what, that comes with time. I mean, none of us ever think of like, okay, you hit 20, then you hit 30, and you're like, oh my God, I'm 40 years old. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, 50? Then you start looking around going like, okay, where's everybody going? And so again, when you're young, just try and, enjoy being your youth. Being an elder and all that stuff, life will just come.
Yeah.
I mean, as you said, we would have done things differently but we don't have that luxury, and no one does.
Right.
So don't stress yourself about that. Just try and enjoy your youth. Build up your information because it can only help your life more.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. That like filled me up for the rest of the day. I don't need to do anything else.
Oh,
I think that's really important. So my next question is, I think we fall a little bit into this trap that whenever we're having conversations with elders or anybody is beyond a certain age, we do a lot of like asking them to reflect backwards, right? And when we talk to young people, we ask a lot of young people like, what are your hopes and dreams for the future, right? So I kind of want to flip the tables a little bit and ask you about what are your hopes and dreams for the future? And we'll start. And I think, Bubbles, you kind of touched a little bit on this already. But like, what are your hopes and dreams for our future of our community of like queer liberation? Where do you hope that we're in the next 10, 20 years?
I mean, I just hope we come as a country. I hope we become more woke in about issues and systemic racism and poverty, and taking care of like our elders. And I mean, not just us. I mean, just in general. I mean, the elders are all, I mean, in other countries, they don't put them in homes and leave them there to, basically just rot.
Right.
And I hope that we really take, an issue with that. Just with COVID alone, seeing what happened to like all these elderly people. And I just hope as a country we've come to a point where it's like we have to take care. I mean, just like we take care of children, when you get to a certain age, you still need help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I hope that we become more woke to those issues, to all the issues. I mean, at some point, it's like you can keep putting checks on everything, but you're gonna be checking till the next millennium because there's always something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
do all those checks. Go on vacation, girl.
Yeah, I think that interconnection is really important and valuable and necessary in our community if we want to have a future. What about you, Ocean? What are your hopes for the future of our community?
Well, I'm going to have to add on to Bubbles' vote. And I think because, when you look at it, I mean, it's like you talk about the future. We're a species that's going through is threatened with extinction right now.
Yeah.
We have, predictions from a scientific point of view that things can continue as they are for maybe 50 more years.
Mm-hmm.
So there certainly needs to be an awakening on a mass level. And I think really this is where going back to our past as queer people, I mean, into our primordial history, we were always the gifted ones
Mm.
and spiritual, and I think because we have less we have less engagement in the world as it is and the structures as it is than some others, that I think that we have to really begin looking at changing the fundamental foundation. We have to look at all the isms, capitalism, colonialism,
Check.
all these things
Check.
are really
Check.
stifling us.
Right.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. So many isms and checks out there, baby.
Absolutely. And then as we start getting to wrap up, I want to ask you one last question, which is, sometimes, and it goes to kind of your point, Ocean, for a long time, queer folks were by many societies, not all, but by many societies, were thought to be folks who were really close to spirit or very special. And there was a gift that was considered like, being what we call queer now was considered by many folks as a gift in many ways. So my question to both of you is, what gift has your queerness given you? Like, what something in your, how do you? So, and I want to start maybe with Bubbles. Like, what gift has your queerness given you that
My
you
queerness
maybe would
has
have not
given
had any
me
other way?
the sense of love and color and creativity
Mm.
through art and through, I mean, you can find happiness and you can give happiness. I live in a sense of color because I find it makes me happy and it brings joy into other people. Just by having, it's funny how walking through the store and people smile and they see blue hair. I'm like, it's just me being me, but I brought a smile to someone's face because they're like, oh, I love your hair. Da, da. And I can spend like 5 minutes in the grocery store talking to someone, a total stranger, because they love my colors. And that bringing color into the world and bringing like that little bit of joy into somebody's day is a beautiful thing. And it's like, that all stems from my queerness.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Thank you. Ocean.
There's so many, recently during Pride Month, June, we had a service at the Unitarian Universalist Society in Hamden, and the theme of it was the many gifts that Pride brings beyond joy, even. And you look at I remember when I was 5 years old, and I just learned to pray. And I uttered this kind of prayer, and I was looking at the normal lives of people and how spiritless it was and how, conformed to everything. And I said, God, please don't make me normal.
I've not heard that one.
It was already given before I uttered it. But there's so many things. And, when in one of my incarnations, I was a PhD in sociology. And in sociology, we look at deviant culture. And deviant doesn't have the connotation of, less than. It's simply, there are people that deviate from what is the norm. People that make straight A's are deviants.
Right.
And one of the things, you look at certain figures in history, like you look at the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. He was a deviant in his time. He was arrested. He was against the social norms, but he ushered in a new ethic through his standard. He paid a price for that. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I think, that's the gift that the deviant brings, to sort of step out of what is going on in society. Wait a minute,
Right.
Get married, get a job, get a house, get a car. What's the program here?
that's a societal norm,
Mhm.
and that's something that they're trying to fight to keep that in our books and in our society, and they don't want the future family, which is basically a family brought up of two men, two women, um, adopted children of color to non, affiliated family. We have changed the scope of what families look like in this last couple of years, and they're really, and I can only say the far left are really trying to keep that um, family like value of one man, one woman, and 3.5 children, and as a stamp of what America family looks like, and that just is like kind of falls to the side.
Yeah.
And I'm really really happy to see that that we can include all these other stems of what family looks like in this time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where like this gift that you were talking about, Ocean, comes in, right? Because we're breaking that status quo, and I want you to continue what you were talking about, and expressing like the gifts about how we can break those molds of these systems that seek to kind of neatly pack us into these little boxes.
Yeah, no, I mean it's just if you reflect on it and you go to it, there's so many gifts, and okay, let's even just look at how people in the queer community have generally championed many things, the arts,
Mm-hmm.
many things, the creativity that is a part of that, and it's only that we know of only certain queer artists, but there are many that were not recognized or were not out in their times and so forth. But I think there's just so much creativity and energy
Yeah.
and life and thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you look at like anything creative, you'll see a lot of like queer and queer energy involved in it. Because again,
Yeah.
I went to an art school, and anytime you like a person in the art field comes out to they put it this way. I grew up in a time where if you danced when you weren't a female, you were gay. Um, and it's true. But you if you were, if you were a man, we have so many like creative like fingers in this world that they don't want to acknowledge, but because of our queerness, we're so creative. Designers, um, dancers, painters, musicians. A lot of that comes from being different and being not of the norm. And those issues are those are our weapons, and those are things that we use to keep society from becoming a gray area.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I say. And when I have colors, and I love color, it's my way of like keeping. I I see society as being very gray,
Yeah.
very black or white. And I don't think that's how it's supposed to be from my point of view. And as a gay person or a gay affiliated living as a trans woman, I I know I'm not norm,
Mm-hmm.
and I revel in it because again, I am a stamp saying that this world is different, and I'm just as valid as anybody else.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we as queer and whatever people, um, we need to exert that because the more we do it, the less they can take away from you.
Mm-hmm. 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 Absolutely. Well, we could continue this conversation for another hour, but Patrick would probably kill me if I did because we have a lot to do for this Pride Week. There's still so much to do. So
I'll be on stage Saturday night. Let people know.
Hey! So I want to thank both of you, Ocean. So the Queer Rainbow Elders and Friends is the last Monday of the month at 6 p.m. It's do I have that correct?
That's correct.
Where is it located?
It's going to be at the New Haven Pride Center. And
Oh,
if you can't make it here, we will also have a hybrid. All of our program is hybrid model, so you can participate at the meetings as well through Zoom. But if you can make it to the New Haven Pride Center, please join us for that. And also continue to join us for all of the rest of the stuff that we have going on for the rest of the week for Pride New Haven 2022. If you have need more information, please visit us at newhavenpridecenter.org. And there you can see the full schedule of we have left coming up for Pride, as well as tune in to our social channels, Facebook, Instagram, all of the medias. We will continue to share the stuff that is coming up. Thank you both to both of you, incredible human beings, for sharing this time with me and this amazing conversation. I see you. I honor the divineness in both of you, and thank you for being willing to share that with me and all of us here on the virtual space. All right.
Live your life